Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. This is your host, MagMongoSlade. Today, we got to talk about your boy, Matthew Hardy, who made a couple of comments this week, over the past week, in June 2024, that has been absolutely delusional, and people are definitely upset with him. His first comment was about AEW's match style, that they care more about 5-star matches than they care about making impactful moments. And the second was about feeling devalued in AEW, leading to both Hardy Boys going to TNA. So this is going to be an enormous video, as we have to look at both of these things. And a lot of it is humorous. But let's talk about what he actually said first, and then we'll get into people's responses. So, on or around June 2024, well, June 19th, 2024, Matt Hardy was on Busted Open Radio. And he said, and I quote, "I feel like AEW is more focused on having a 5-star match as opposed to having a segment that is hugely impactful and makes a moment." Now, on this topic, I absolutely agree with Matthew. AEW does not really care about making moments. They care about, cage match and what all of those people think. It is not the fault of anybody that AEW's moments, quote unquote, now, some of them exist. There's a moment here and there, Cody and Dustin hugging. The first time the bell rings between Omega and Danielson. There is, Sting's retirement was a big moment. But a lot of the AEW moments are things in which they lost more than they gained. The pizza cutter to the head. Matt Hardy getting a chair skipped across his head. And, that kind of thing. So there's moments in AEW, but a lot of them are just wrestlers destroying themselves. In like Darby Allin, going through a pane of glass, or somebody getting suplexed through fire or something like that, which is like ECW level stuff, rather than things that really tell you what the company is. And like when you think of big moments for ECW, those moments are moments that tells the viewer what ECW is. The same thing with WCW, and same thing with TNA to a degree. AEW, however, they kind of do, but since it's such a schizophrenic promotion that keeps changing its identity and it's not really rooted in anything, like, is AEW the moment Danielson and Omega were in the room together, the place where the best wrestle, as they say, or is it, Chris Jericho getting a cheese grater right across the head, or is it Darby Allin falling off a ladder through a pane of glass? What is it? As a promotion, WWE, because it's been around for so long, it has that kind of schizophrenic element too, but it's chopped up in different eras, where there was an era where what WWE was Vince McMahon getting showered in beer and stunners and middle fingers and crotch chops and bra and panties matches. And then there was an era where WWE is all family friendly entertainment. It's Savage and Elizabeth. It's Hulkamania running wild, Hogan in the ring posing with everybody. It's Ultimate Warrior. It's, all that stuff. So WWE is different because it's been around for so long. TNA has always been known as sort of the incompetent promotion. So a lot of the humorous things that have occurred in TNA has always been at TNA's own detriment, where Jeff Hardy comes out screwed up and Sting has to just pin him, or where Sting did a scorpion death drop and banked his own head on a steel chair, Joker Sting, or the various humorous things between Flair and Hogan in like 2010, 2011 TNA. There's a lot of stuff there, that these moments make a promotion. So that stuff is important. And AEW has the opportunity to make moments sometimes, and they miss out on it because they don't know how to do that, because their primary focus is on getting the match in the ring, getting two great wrestlers in the ring and getting that match over. But they miss out on moments, When CM Punk was there, they were kind of making moments. They were doing interesting things. When Sting was there, they were doing interesting things. When Cody was there, they were doing interesting things, even though sometimes it fell into the LOL AEW thing, like the botched weigh-in, you know. But I don't disagree with Matt when it comes to AEW's presentation. And for people who care more about storytelling and trying to make wrestling somewhat fun, these very dry, matches, it's not really for them. Now, his second comment, however, was in the context of Jeff coming to TNA. Now, he's explaining his creative process when he talks about being devalued in AEW. He basically says, I'm not gonna read anything. I'm just gonna give you the cliff notes. That he was going to TNA, and that it was always the plan for him to put over Moose at the pay-per-view, but he wanted to build up some equity in him because they had been devalued in TNA for so long, meaning both him and Jeff, and they were going to bring Jeff in because nobody else had reached out to Jeff. AEW didn't try to re-sign him. They basically just let him go. So on this one, everybody attacks Matt, saying, well, Jeff devalued the Hardy Boys. He got a DUI like 2 weeks in. And Matt is like, well, we get that. Jeff screwed it up. Jeff screwed up some. But I think a lot of people are missing out on Matt was devalued before he even got to Jeff coming in. The whole thing with Private Party was a disaster. He started out doing broken Matt Hardy, then he went away from that because he got a concussion because Sammy Guevara tried to murder him. That included Tony Khan getting into it with Rebby live on Twitter, them arguing back and forth during the pay-per-view. While the pay-per-view is still going on, they're arguing on Twitter. So, in Matt's physical condition, you should already just say, look, Matt can't go. So, we should already say, well, you devalue just because you basically got no mobility and you're like 48 years old. But on this one, I'm on the side of the sickos because, again, Matt's 48, he can't move. Jeff had a DUI literally like a month in. Of course, the Hardy Boys have been devalued. So, and Matt's been very critical of their AEW booking. So on his podcast, he mentions that initially they were in a good spot with Tony Khan and AEW, and they were being used and everything was fine, and then Jeff screwed it up. And then after that, things went all downhill. He says, and I quote, whenever he came back, I figured, he means Jeff, it would probably take a couple of months, 2 or 3 months to prove himself. Because I knew where Jeff was in his head. I knew what kind of positive headspace he was in and how good of a place he was in. I said it'll probably take 2 or 3 months to earn the trust back of these people, and then maybe we'll be off and running. But just after Jeff came back, we didn't win any tag team matches for a year. It's crazy. We were the Hardys. We didn't win a tag team match on TV in a year. And I thought this up to what are we doing? We just need to win. Just give us a win. We don't need to be the champions. We don't need to be undefeated. But just we need a win at some point. And it was just very frustrating. And he says whenever Jeff did a deal where he wrestled Darby because Sting got hurt, and they switched it up, and we were going to be teaming with Mark Briscoe. And he's talking about that, and this is very long-winded. And he says we were up for turning heel. We were up for being, the larger-than-life tag team that almost buys into they're the greatest tag team of all time, and almost like the parody stuff, and do it so big and over the top that I think we could even got over as baby faces. But we didn't end up doing that. We didn't get the full opportunity to follow up through that. And then Jeff started having singles matches. And after every singles match, he'd come up to me like, why am I doing singles matches? Why are we not teaming? We're like the Hardys, right? We're like the Hardy Boys. Why are we not a team? And why am I doing these singles? So he's been very critical especially on his podcast over the last couple of weeks about AEW and the booking. Jeff doing singles matches, as we just discussed, them not winning. And the fans rightfully noted that that Jeff screwed all this up. And Matt has tried to say, well, I hold Jeff accountable for his own actions, which is to a degree true, but you expect people to sort of snap back into place like, oh, he slipped and fell down. Okay, let's move on. But when you think about it from Tony Khan's perspective, they did some kind of chicanery. And a lot of people was like, look, there's got to be some level of contract tampering that got Jeff out of that AEW, out of his WWE contract and into AEW. There's a lot of people who feel that way. So if you're Tony Khan and maybe you pulled some strings and some levers, you made some promises to get Jeff into AEW. And then as soon as he gets into the company, he screws everything up by getting another DUI, and you have to suspend him. And then Tony Khan is notorious for holding grudges, like holding grudges a long time. Remember, Sammy Guevara still has not back on television. As of recording of this video, Sammy Guevara still has not returned after he injured Jeff Hardy in a match. Sammy Guevara has not been seen since. Jungle Boy was gone for 8 months because Tony Khan had to fire CM Punk. So he's notorious for when he actually does make a move, he lays down the hammer. And it's like a prolonged thing. So I don't think that Matt expected that. I think he expected, okay, you dropped the ball, but now's your chance to prove yourself. You're off suspension, whatever. And that didn't occur. What occurred was Tony Khan lost interest in the Hardy Boys completely. And who's to say that he was wrong for that? Again, I think we've said this for years and years. Like, it's been 20 years of Jeff. 24 years. It's been going on since 1999. It's been public since at least 2001 that Jeff has struggled with drugs and alcohol. You think, how many chances do we give a guy before you give up on him? Tony only gave him one. And I think that's fair considering the 20 years of WWE and TNA giving him chances. He only had one in AEW. So I think that's fair. So let's get into some of these responses because people are very mad. Because we're dealing with two different subjects, I'm going to have to say which people are roasting him for what reason. So the following people are roasting Matt for the comment about AEW being focused on matches and not moments. One guy says, it could have been MJF turned into a werewolf, Tony. Well, that might have been fun. Well, he is a werewolf now, isn't he? Matt being a massive dick rider for the company while employed, then immediately changing track the second he's out is hilariously on brand. Well, yes. But the thing is, he was actually kind of critical of his booking while he was there. But he's still friends with the Young Bucks. And somebody is actually putting up the Matt Hardy quote when he was under AEW contract. And I'm going to read it because let's not forget that he said this. Between this and the toxic Cornette cult, these guys don't get the adoration that they truly deserve. The diehard elite fans are phenomenal and get why they're special. But there's a huge chunk of fans that fail to give them the credit they deserve. Give these guys their flowers. But here's the thing. Matt criticizing AEW and its booking of him and his brother does not make him a hypocrite. He's in this comment, he's talking about the Young Bucks, who are still his friends as far as we know. So everybody is very hitched to him doing the House of Horrors kind of gimmick in TNA, where Eddie Edwards turned into a werewolf. There's a lot of people who are still talking about that. TNA's ratings and attendance must be going through the roof now that they have an abundance of impactful moments. Well, he's only been there like a month. He hasn't been in TNA that long. But since he's been there, they've already done a lot of ridiculous stuff. They've already done some ridiculous stuff since he's been there. But it's hilarious. Matt is quite correct. AEW doesn't cater towards wrestlers who have non-functional knees and hips. Oh. 100% spitting facts. Funny part about this is I can't even get a 5-star match. And I'm not talking about Dave Meltzer's bullshit. Translation. TK said no to all my great ideas where I would get lots of TV time with my embarrassing cinematic broken shite. That response got 1,451 likes. It has been 950,000 views. Almost 100,000 views. Oh, good Lord. Oh, good Lord. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Matt Hardy was wanking off Tony Khan and AEW for the last 3 years. Wrestlers are never beating the Carney allegations. Well, he's questioning the booking, which everybody does. He doesn't say anything negative about any talent. He's just saying this is a weakness in their game. Why can't he notice weaknesses? Why can't we notice weaknesses? Is everything supposed to be perfect? Because it's not. Here's another one. This is a dated criticism that doesn't reflect how shows like Dynamite and Collision are put together in 2024, which have plenty of interviews, recaps, and video packages between the matches. If anything, they do too much gaga to try to silence criticism that they don't have any. Well, video packages and interviews and recaps, that's not the stuff that we're talking about. That is not the stuff that we're discussing here when we talk about impactful moments. That's not what we're discussing here. It's not. So you're off subject. Way off subject. AEW is more wrestling, while WWE is more sports entertainment. Not much wrestling. 20 minutes of opening bullshit talking, war of words, and 10 minutes wrestling, then another 20-minute promo, maybe a 15-minute match, 10-minute bullshit talking promo, 5-minute ladies match, WWE getting lame. Well, this is kind of talk about outdated criticisms. This is not exactly true of the opening promo has remained the same, but the matches have gotten substantially longer. They've gotten much longer, much longer. On the back to Matt Hardy, it says they wouldn't let him on TV while he could barely walk down the ramp, so now he's focused to shit on them. Maybe one of the worst signings in AEW history. Basically killed Private Party for what feels like 5 full years. Now wait a minute. We're going to blame Matt Hardy for Private Party not getting over? So wait a second. Wasn't one of those guys in Private Party injured for most of that time? Yeah, you had Isaiah Cassidy or whatever. He was hanging out with Matt. But that other guy was hurt for a long time. And he was hurt, quite often. So I wouldn't blame, Matt Hardy for the death of Private Party, but anything, he couldn't get Private Party off the ground. Remember, Private Party was one of those teams that they sent to TNA, and they were going to do something between TNA and Private Party, but then everything went tits up with TNA. So I don't know, man. Very strange. Let's move on to people being very angry at Matt, talking about how AEW devalued them for a year, because this might be more entertaining. Matt Hardy's utter refusal to hold his brother accountable is fascinating. He knows they were valued, knows they were going to get the belts, and knows why that didn't happen. A new company bet on them and gave Jeff his umpteenth chance, and he fucked it up. It isn't complicated. Now, apparently there's a quote here, and they were going to get the tag team titles in AEW, and then Jeff got the DUI. That sucks. Sucks for them. Your brother got more DUIs in AEW than you have functioning knees, and I'm supposed to give a fuck about this. Ooh-wee. Ouch. It's true. It hurts because it's true. I mean, Matt's knees are basically chopsticks at this point. Well, his legs are chopsticks at this point. Jesus. Your brother got a DUI the week before he was supposed to win the tag titles. Jeff Hardy was on a roll before his DUI. This is what brothers do by sticking up for each other. So I'm not really arguing against Matt. But Jeff screwed Jeff. Nobody screwed Jeff. Oh boy. I love the Hardys, but Matt, you were literally going to win the tag titles until Jeff messed up again. Devalued, Matt Hardy, despite walking and moving around like the ring like the hunchback of Notre Dame, was on TV constantly and got several pay-per-view matches. Jeff Hardy came in as a big deal and was immediately pushed. The Hardy Boys, undeservedly so, were all set to win the tag titles until Jeff Hardy got a DUI. Even after the DUI, when Jeff returned, he got a singles push, where he wrestled Mox and Swerve in competitive matches. So Matt needs to take his revisionist history elsewhere. Well, he was used as an old jabroni at that point. He didn't have a real chance of. I mean, when you say competitive match, you mean long match. Competitive match would assume that people thought he could beat Jon Moxley or Swerve Strickland, which in that position, everybody knew was not going to happen. A competitive match would assume that Jeff had a chance of winning, but he didn't. Another comment says, I'm so tired with all these mid-ass people leaving AEW saying shit like this. You didn't do better and got cut. Suck it up, Jesus fuck. Oh. Crazy when people leave WWE, all of a sudden, nobody has these problems when these guys come out and say, well, my booking sucked, or they didn't do anything with me, or then it's absolutely true. Oh, yes, we most certainly was supposed to make random guy X world champion because that's what the internet thinks, because this guy is now saying everything that he wants to say, you know, but in reality, he was mid as fuck. And it's the same situation here. Matt and Jeff, look, Jeff can move better than Matt, but they're both old and slow. They just have star power. So they're good for, you know, the House of Horrors kind of stuff where they can pre-record something and it could be fun and funny. But having live matches, ooh, that's going to be something. That's going to be interesting. Somebody else has a list of things. Pre-order exclusive for Fight Forever. Several angles that dragged on way longer than they had any right to. Paired with the popular young talents that halted their momentum. Was supposed to get the tag titles before Jeff fucked it up again. What is bro yapping about? He's being called... Somebody's calling Matt a grifter. He says they were devalued because less than 3 months after his debut, Jeff got himself arrested again. Ugh. He says, I get sticking up for your brother 100%, but Matt, let's face facts. The reason why y'all were devalued was because of Jeff's demons that came back and it cost y'all big time in AEW. I'm going to try to find some that don't mention Matt's knees or Jeff's DUI, but that's going to make this thing, that's going to make this thing a lot shorter. Last night, I had a dream that Jeff botched a move and hit his head and it started bruising in real time. And doctors checked on him. And then I guess my feed caught up because he was still wrestling after. So even my subconscious knows that the Hardys aren't devalued in 2024. Oh, what? I don't even understand. Oh, my Lord. The claim is that Matt's being taken out of context, even though the clip is 2 minutes, which is hilarious. That's entertaining. They were enriched massively by Tony Khan to repeatedly deliver subpar in-ring performances and awful character work. Had Jeff not unfortunately had a relapse, they would have been the worst AEW tag team champions of all time. They've devalued themselves by not retiring. Wow. Now, let's be honest. When it comes to character work, that pretty much went out of the window when Jeff came in. Then they became the Hardy Boys, and that was it. Now, Matt, with big money, Matt, that was terrible. That was awful. But again, Matt Hardy is no good. The only thing that he's had, the only hit that he's had in the last, 15 years has been the Broken Universe stuff. And ultimately, he just keeps going back to it because that's really all he's got in the book, you know? And with that, you don't need to wrestle. You can just do cinematic stuff. And at his age, that's all he really wants to do, you know? And if he was willing to do that for AEW or with AEW, then they were willing to do it at least initially. Because they let Darby do all that kind of stuff, all these cinematic matches. They did it with Sting and everything. So why not do it with the Hardy Boys? You know, I don't know. But it's humorous. Most vets would complain about being a nostalgia act. It looks like that's what they were going to be and win the tag titles before Jeff's arrest. That cannot be ignored. Remember the disgust about that? Being real, they were a huge liability. No offense, but this isn't on TK. Here's another one. This one's very interesting. This one's actually worth discussing. So it's simple, really. Notice how Billy Gunn, Christian, and Copeland completely reinvented themselves. Notice how the Hardys were more just a nostalgia act. Remember how the Hardys were getting pushed before Jeff's DUI? Why reward that when there are other teams behaving? This interesting bit is about Billy Gunn, Christian, and Copeland completely reinventing themselves. Now, Christian did reinvent himself. He's working a whole different character than he's ever done before. And it's very entertaining. So I'll give him point for that. Billy Gunn is, you know, with the Acclaimed. I don't know if you say he's reinventing himself, but he's playing an interesting role as a mentor to the Acclaimed. But they're basically like the new age outlaws for the AEW fan base. At least they want to be. So I don't know. But Adam Copeland reinventing himself, brother, he literally is just doing Edge in AEW. He literally just did the vampire gimmick and had never done that before in AEW. And now he's a vampire in AEW. So no, he's a nostalgia act too, brother. But I understand. Nobody should want to be a nostalgia act. And that's exactly what the Hardy Boys were going to be. He says, I actually think, given the circumstances, they were overvalued. And it feels sort of like an Undertaker situation, where they seem to be forever chasing, quote, the perfect send-off for their careers. One they'll never find, whether it's due to injury or Jeff's irresponsibility. And you know what? That's a really good point, too. You know, how can you expect these guys to have sort of the perfect send-off when they're not really going to be able to have matches the way they used to? And if they, you know, now if they do, it'd probably be in TNA. But yeah, I personally think both Hardy Boys should have retired a long time ago. I definitely think that they should have retired a long time ago. Being a star in WWE does something to the brains of a select few like Matt. He was a nostalgia act that TK was trying to give a last championship title run to, but Jeff is gonna Jeff. AEW pay-per-views are not ending with him standing victorious in the ring. TNA is where he belongs. Well, here's the issue. He didn't say they had to be in the main event. He's just saying do something with us that matters. You know, we should win sometimes. We have to have value. If, you know, what is beating us? What does that mean if we never win? It's like, you know, the Rock and Roll Express in like 1998 or something, 1997 or something like that. If they never actually win and they always lose, then people are just going to say, oh, well, they might have been something in 1984, but they're nothing in 1997. And pretty much that's the situation that they got going on right here. Here's an interesting one. This one is kind of brutal. Jeff looked like he was in pain walking to the ring. That's outside of his arrest when they were going to win the belts. Matt had how many angles even before Jeff arrived? He was broken, then rich, and altogether boring. And I absolutely agree with that last one. Matt Hardy is not interesting. He's not interesting in the least bit. These old niggas don't even want old school Mid-South or Jim Crockett promotion style wrestling. They just want community theater. Who the fuck wants to see the Hardy Boys in a Mid-South or Jim Crockett promotion style? And where are you going to find that in 2024? That's certainly not AEW. because I don't remember too many people getting set on fire, any pizza cutters or anything like that in those promotions. I mean, it's one thing to just, tell the truth about the Hardy Boys being old guys who are not in shape, they're beat up, they beat the shit. It's one thing to say all that, and all that would be true. It's one thing to say that you don't like their ideas. The Broken Universe stuff is kind of old now. It's been going on for, I don't know, 10 years. They off and on, they've been doing the Broken Universe. It's one thing to not like that. But to basically frame AEW as being sort of this heir to Jim Crockett Promotions or Mid-South Wrestling, when you actually watch this product, is humorous. It's very humorous, and I will not let people get away with that. It is not nearly the same. It's not nearly the same. All Matt Hardy is saying is work on stories. I think he even mentioned that AEW needs to focus more on getting heat and, making sure that the heels have heat and that kind of stuff. That's basic wrestling 101, but it's incredibly true because quite often, and it's mostly because of the smart audience of AEW, if a heel has heat, they just turn babyface. Swerve Strickland, Tony Storm, they just turn them babyface. And typically, Tony Khan, because he's a go-with-the-flow kind of guy, he just turns them face because that's what his audience wants. But everybody's very mad at Matt and Jeff. And it's all very understandable. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. I will talk to you guys later.